What do we have to do to make things fly? Not just survive, but fly.
Let's go. Let's go to space.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. Today is February 10th, 2022. I've got the wrong slides up there. Let's fix that while I'm giving my little intro here. But I am Tim Alatorre. I am the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder, one of the co-founders for Orbital Assembly, and very glad to have you here with us today. And there we go. That says February 10th, 2023. We are now have the right deck, so we are good to go. Today, we're going to be doing our normal format here where I'll be giving a little overview of what we've been up to and then taking your questions. So very excited to have you all joining us today, and feel free to add those questions in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. So to start off with here today, just a reminder, we do still have 2 investment opportunities going. We have our Reg CF raise, which is still open on the Net Capital platform, and we are scheduled to close that on the 21st. And we will not be extending that again on Net Capital. That will be the cutoff date for that. And so if you would like to invest and learn more, you can go to orbitalassembly.com/invest, and that will take you to that page. Or for accredited investors, we still do have our Reg D open. And that is, there are 2 different offerings. And I can't get into details in a public setting like this, but you can go to that page and reach out to us and go to the appropriate locations to find out more information. Also, just a reminder, we still have our continuing series, Our Future in Space podcast, which has been kicking off its 2nd season this January. And our last episode was actually really a fun one. We had, so Eric and Jeff connected with a company in Portland, which we've been in communication with for some time now. And they build private spacesuits. It's a private spacesuit company. And Eric had the chance to go there and try one on, and he and Jeff learned a lot about spacesuits in the process. And so we've clipped that down to some of the more interesting parts. It's a very long process, and walking through everything that goes into actually getting into a spacesuit is something that I'm sure a lot of you are interested in, hoping to put on a spacesuit at some point in time. And we walk you through it in quite a bit of specificity. And because it's a DIY suit, it's not made through a very large company like ILC Dover. They made the Apollo suits. They still make space suits. SpaceX, of course, has their suit. And so the way this one's put together is a little different. And the designer, he goes through and talks about why certain things are done in the way they're done. And hopefully you enjoy that. We're going to be trying to do some more sort of in the field, like on-site programs with Our Future in Space as we do hardware testing this year. We'll let Eric and Jeff kind of narrate what's going on and talk about some of the things that we're doing. But really a fun program, and I encourage you to check that out. One thing to note: Our Future in Space has been moved to its own dedicated YouTube channel. So if you go to news.orbitalassembly.com, you'll still get to all the episodes. But if you were subscribed last year on the regular Orbital Assembly channel, we're now moving that all into its own channel. That way our Orbital Assembly channel is more focused around what we're doing specifically as a company and not so much the community conversation. Also, this last, I guess, week, time's going by pretty quickly, but towards the end of February, end of January, early part of February, Rhonda, our CEO, was in Nairobi in Africa. She was invited to be the guest of Dr. Mae Jemison, who is hosting the Nexus event, the Business of Space workshop. And Rhonda was able to host and participate in a couple of panels there. She actually worked with Mae on some of the organizational pieces for that event. And it was really a productive event. We did a podcast episode on Our Future of Space in December with a panel of kind of commentators and influencers in space talking about space is for everyone. And one of the things that really Orbital Assembly was founded on was the idea of making space more broadly accessible. We're trying to bring in as many people as possible into space, the space ecosystem, the space business, the commerce of space. And that includes outreach to European countries, Asian countries, and now African countries. And Rhonda was able to make some really key connections with different heads of state and companies on the African continent who have wanted to engage in space but haven't been able to make it through the NASA ecosystem or the ESA ecosystem. And they're really excited to be working with us. And so those are conversations that will be ongoing. We'll make announcements as they come up. But this is just our continuing efforts to broaden the circle of what it means for participation in space and getting away from the typical path of becoming a U.S. Air Force pilot and then into NASA and then hopefully being one of a select dozen or so people that actually get to go to space. Also, just there's a lot of companies that want to do things in space, and Africa in particular has a lot of terrains that can be remedied in part, or at least supported. The solutions can be supported through efforts in space. So just really exciting. And again, as things evolve, we'll let you know. These are all still early conversations. And then just a reminder, if you haven't seen it yet, I see these questions coming up quite a bit on some of the different discussions for the media and social posts we put out there, just about the effects of microgravity. Why do we need artificial gravity? The gravity report that was done by Dr. Mae Jemison, 100-year Starship, former NASA astronaut, and Dr. Ronke Olabisi at UC Irvine is available for you to check out at orbitalassembly.com/gravity. And there's a lot of good information in there. It covers a wide variety of both human physiology and psychological impacts of the space environment, from microgravity to artificial gravity. It goes into some of the factors as to how to design stations and best practices. So it's a real great just summary of a lot of things that have been studied and learned over the last 60 years in space. And I would encourage you to go check it out if you haven't yet. Okay, so with that, we'll open it up to questions. There are some other pending things that I was really hoping we'd get solidified so I could talk to you about it today. It's looking like some of those things are going to become publicly disclosable next week. So we'll do another Q&A in March, and hopefully by then I'll be able to talk about some of these other exciting things. But for today, just going through the questions here. So we have several from Benny. Benny, thanks for being involved in the chat here. And anybody else, if you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in here. So Benny asks, or he hopes this broadcast will be longer than 8 minutes. I think we've surpassed the 8-minute mark by just 4 seconds at this point. So mission accomplished on that, Benny, but it all depends today on what questions are given. So I think, Benny, you're asking about the color of the spacesuit that Eric was wearing, if I'm correct, and why that's red. Let me come back to that. So the interesting thing about the spacesuit, so there's a couple of different layers to the piece of clothing that Eric's wearing. You have the inner layer is basically the pressure vessel. It's the sealed suit that holds the pressure. Then you have a constraint layer on top of that, which keeps the inflatable structure against your body. And then what you're seeing here in this image, this red material, is what they call the EVA protection. It's I'm not sure exactly what this material is specifically for this suit, but a lot of times it's a very thick fabric, such as a Kevlar, oftentimes multiple layers of different really durable materials that can take an impact, can be scratched and cut at without tearing, and they protect the under layers of the restraint layer and then ultimately the pressure bladder, which keeps you alive. So in this case, I think you have to go back and watch the video, and I don't recall. This suit is one that was made for an analog space mission by another country, and I have a feeling the colors were picked by them for their particular mission. Let's see. So yeah, a comment here from Benny that a lot will change as soon as SpaceX launches, and my guess here, reading between the lines, that you're talking about the Starship. And yes, absolutely. Anytime we get a new capability for launch, that's something that opens up a lot of options. I was really excited this last week. If you're a follower of some of the other space news that's going on, everyday astronaut Tim Dodd did a great interview and visit to Stoke Aerospace up in the Northwest United States. And we've had a number of conversations with Stoke, and actually I think we've got them listed as one of our service partners for downmassing and transportation. But they've made a lot of progress this last year, and so they're getting out there more with some of their hardware. But their capabilities, as well as the exploration company and the European Union, there's a number of different companies working on different vehicles to transport mass and people to orbit. And each of these, including SpaceX, adds additional capabilities and opportunities for not just for what we're doing and examining how we can build space stations and platforms differently, but then also servicing. And one of the things that we're doing is we're developing platforms. So when we're looking at, right here, this is let's see if I can point the right direction. Voyager station. Everything's backwards. Voyager station's here, right? So that is going to be a much larger business park on orbit. But the near term is the station in the box with the Pioneer station, Free Flyer, the Phase 1 station, which is as a microgravity module. And that module in itself will be launched with a few payloads and experiments in this initial launch. But really, it's the servicing and the cadence that we talk about to allow businesses to actually run a profitable business. If you're creating a factory in space, you need to get raw materials to your factory, process them, and then get the finished product back to Earth. And so we have a number of partners that we're working with, and look forward to all the different services that they provide, augmenting what our customers and tenants can do. So you got ULA, United Launch Alliance, you got CR Space, you've got SpaceX, Rocket Lab, Relativity Space, Stoke Aerospace, Exploration Company, and there's more and more. I think we were counting different vehicles the other day. I mean, we're well over 12 at this point. Might even be past 20 right now, different launch vehicles. And if I didn't mention CR Space is in there as well with Dream Chaser. They were one of our first partners that we were working with for transportation. Okay, so Aiden's asking, thanks for being here. He's asking, what's the timeline for this year? So, one of the challenges we run into with space and aerospace is timelines, because the technology and the development part actually goes pretty quick. It's all of the business and the legal and the financial pieces that just seem to drag on and take forever. Like right now, the announcement I really want to make to you today, we're wrapping up kind of the legal piece to where I can actually talk about it. So this year really is, we have two main objectives for this year. One is small scale hardware demos. And then two is starting construction on the flight hardware for Pioneer. So the main system components for Phase 1 Pioneer Station all have very high TRL, technology readiness level. Like independently, they've flown on orbit, they've been tested in microgravity, been tested in the space environment. And the piece that we are working on is the integration and bringing those different developed technologies together in a new way. So we have, for example, vendors for our docking and berthing mechanisms, our pressure vessels, our environmental control systems, solar, thermal radiators, all the avionics, the rocket engines. All these are existing technologies that we are pulling together. So for us, it's really more of an integration and control system roadmap that we're focusing on for kind of the near term development. And we can do that all with very small scale in simulated environments. So we can do that in, for example, frictionless environments. We can do that in vacuum chambers and in thermal vacuum chambers and RF test facilities with electromagnetic controlled environments. So we're going to be doing several of those this year. I know we've got at least two planned in the next few months, and then starting to construct flight hardware. We're also looking to do a full-scale mock-up of that Phase 1 station. So in our facility here in Huntsville, building basically the entire module if we can make it work. Otherwise, we'll do half the module. Space constraints notwithstanding there. And we've had talks with the experts at NASA, with Marshall Space Flight Center, and we're working on a Space Act agreement with them right now, actually, to bring in their expertise as well, because they have decades of working on ISS and helping them do analysis after we've done this mock-up, and they can come in and give best practices and feedback. So some really exciting things this year, and what that means is that as possible, we'll be releasing video and images of the various tests. We can't bring you into the test facility in person, but we can share some progress images of that. And then in our facility, fingers crossed, my goal, personal goal, and we'll see how this plays out, would be to have you, our investors, be able to come and actually touch the full scale of the station. So looking forward to that. Let's see here. Sorry, I got carried away. That was a good question. I got excited about it, and chat got away from me. Let's see. Aiden, one more question for you. Who's my inspiration and why? That's a challenging question. I think more than maybe like a who, like an individual, it's probably a group of people. And it's really, so my motivations changed over time as well. When I was a kid, space was just this exciting new unknown thing, and it was fascinating, right? It's something that you don't really interact with on the day-to-day, but like at night you can see it's out there, and just the excitement of, wouldn't it be awesome to go and experience that, and then see Earth. But really, as I've progressed, especially working with Orbital Assembly, and we've had an opportunity to talk to so many people around the world, I've come to realize that there's a lot of benefits that come from space that really are benefiting only a very small percentage of the population. Now, there's GPS or weather data where we all benefit from that equally, for the most part. People that are connected, and then there's medical advancements like different medical devices and research that have been developed through space. Obviously, Apollo brought us semiconductors and Velcro and all sorts of cool things. But the economic and the physical benefits of going to space, for example, for medical therapies, are really limited to such a small percentage of the population. And so it really motivates me and gets me excited and out the door every day, and working on this way too many hours from the people that love me. They say I work way too many hours, but what is motivating for me is the prospect of getting that, all those benefits of space to you and into the hands of more and more people. And we're making it happen. Orbital Assembly and companies like us are bringing these technologies rapidly to more and more people. Let's see, Rudy, thanks for joining us. He says, enjoy your perspective on current progress in space. I'm not sure how much perspective I give. I usually talk about what Orbital Assembly is doing. Jeff and Eric, they pontificate on the space industry as a whole. Let's see here. Benny's asking, has anyone ever tried arterial gravity in space, or will we be the first? And I think what you mean by that is like rotational gravity. And yes, it has been done before. There's a couple of experiments that have been done, both on a small and a larger scale. And some are publicly available to be talked about, and some are more restricted. And I know of one mission in particular, which I'm not sure if it's classified, but it is not talked about publicly, and I'm not at liberty to talk about it. But we do have data and information from those tests. So yes, some tests have been done, but not like a long duration mission for months or weeks, or where people are living. They're very short duration or smaller scale tests. The Launchpad asks, well, I'll put the compliment in here. He says, always appreciate the updates. You're welcome. He says, what has been the biggest learn over the last year? The big learn this last year has been better understanding our customer base and who is actually going to be using our platforms and stations. Initially when we were starting out, especially with Voyager over here, the thought was that building a large platform and getting a lot of people on it would help to lower the overall cost because there's more users and such. And that's still, I still believe that's the case. There's going to be an economies of scale to building larger structures as opposed to a number of small structures. But really, the big thing has been industry is not ready for the timelines that the space and the industrial industry is not ready for the timelines of the space industry. Space development is moving so much faster than manufacturers, pharmaceutical companies, and researchers are ready for. And so, our customers have a lag time between the time they can, get the vision of what we're doing and then secure funding to actually pay us to do the missions. And so there's not, the immediate day one need for a massive Voyager station, but there's a lot of smaller needs for more small platforms. And there's a lot of companies that are really wanting to do, near-term stuff on a much smaller scale with the ability to then scale to larger industrial and production capabilities. ISS is at capacity. There's not enough space on the International Space Station. Talking to the other CLD, commercial LEO development companies, and CDFF, commercial destination free flyer, people building private stations, the other companies, pretty much the trend across the board and talking with all of us is there's a huge demand, and it's how do we get them what they need right now with the ability to then scale to what they're going to need in 2 to 5 years. And so that's where you've seen us shift in our program, where we're doing a lot of kind of more small scale things with keeping with all of our modularity and scalability. Our station in a box concept, which is a single launch space station that can be ready and from the time you order it to the time we have it on orbit is about 30 months. And the price tag is low enough that companies and small countries and government institutions can purchase those. And that's really where we've kind of learned this last year. What's the sweet spot of what the market wants? And so we've pivoted and are really pushing on that. Let's see here. Sindrog25 says, it seems like the investment effort and reaching new followers has lost steam. Do you have any ideas in getting your brand out there to attract more interest? It's so for those watching, the capital raise that's going on right now does not have the same momentum as our raise back in 2021. That's absolutely certain. I think part of it is we are still talking to the same audience, and so most of you who are on this call have invested, and you've probably invested all that you can invest or that are want to invest. There's a high level of risk to what we're doing, and so not everyone wants to just keep extending their risk position. That's not something everybody can do. And so there's that part of it. Also, we didn't, the current capital raise, we didn't market it as extensively as we did on previous raises. And we really opened this up more for a certain number of people who were wanting to invest and have been asking for those opportunities. And so, it was more of a targeted to a smaller group. Our Reg D and our larger investors is, I don't want to say that's where our focus is, but it is where our focus is. I mean, we appreciate everyone who's investing in the Reg CF, and that's important. Like getting the word out and letting people participate and having you have a vested interest in what we're doing, holding us accountable, your input and your feedback, and eventually, so Aiden asked what our timeline was for this year. We'll be doing quite a bit more hiring this year as well. And so, being able to tap into our investor network and those of you who are, already have skin in the game to then come and work for us is important too. So, there's a lot of kind of tangential benefits to doing the Reg CF than just the dollars that come in. And as far as getting our brand out, that's something that we're always, working to have, like I mentioned earlier, the Our Future in Space podcast. We do social media posts. My thought is once we start getting, these hardware demo, more information about the hardware and people actually seeing progress, we'll attract more people with that. So that's where I'm focused, as opposed to, trying to do a much bigger ad campaign or something like that. Just show progress, and that'll get people excited, right? Let's see here. John, let's see, you've got some ideas about some technology development. So we do get ideas quite a bit. People send us in ideas for different technology and ideas for how to design stations. We really can't, accept ideas. If you're working for us and you're an employee, that's one thing, but there's a whole lot of, we have to be really careful about outside ideas coming in just for, patent and IP protection and that sort of thing. Let's see here. And yes, Benny says, I'm sure it'll help once we make it to space. Yes, once we're in space, I think people will be we'll have a much bigger audience. And yeah, Benny points out also some of the issues with redomiciling into Delaware. So the company was founded in California, and we redomiciled to Delaware, and how that whole legal situation played out. There's been some negativity and some frustration about that. And we're working on, let me just say, we're very loyal to our investors, all of you who've invested, and we're trying to work in some other ways to reward those who've been with us since the beginning. And again, the legal situation and just regulation is on the financial side in particular is a headache. And so it's just taking time to work through all those things. And I understand completely where the regulation side is coming from. We want to protect you. The government wants to protect you, and so just making sure that we're doing things properly with the proper disclosures and making sure things are done in a careful sequence to where we're not jeopardizing the company and the investors' investment by doing something halfway thought out. And then Joe makes the comment about, he says, most retail investors don't have the patience and often need something more tangible to show constant progress, where this is likely to come later with Orbital Assembly. And yeah, that is something I feel very acutely, especially, this last year, on the technology side, there wasn't the big demonstration and public event like we did with the D-Star Trust demonstration in Southern California. That was a great event where people can come out and they could touch it, they could see it, and they could visualize, the way this trust is assembled. This could be happening in space, and anytime you move, 5 tons of steel across a parking lot, that's exciting. And we just haven't had those kind of events this year. We haven't, the focus hasn't been on that side of the business. It's been on the other business dev and getting customers who want to use a station, for example, and working on the other designs for Pioneer and pivoting to that. And yeah, there's just not those like flashy updates, but they will come. And I think, for all of us who are SpaceX fans who've been watching Starship, right? There's a lot of progress happening behind the scenes. There is so much improvement on their engines and their architecture and the way they're developing Starship to be able to be rapidly produced and to be safe. And once that flies, we're all going to forget the wait. The reward will be worth it. And so we are pushing really hard to get some tangible results, and I'm fairly confident that's going to be happening very soon. And again, my pushing and my timelines often, the legal and the regulatory side might get in the way. So I don't want to commit to anything firmly, but there's some really cool things in the works and some exciting stuff coming. So, well, thank you all for joining today. This was a great group that we had on the chat. And if you have other questions that we didn't get to, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at info@orbitalassembly.com. Of course, go to orbitalassembly.com/invest to learn more about those opportunities. And again, our net capital raise closes on the 21st. We try to respond to those questions as quickly as possible. If you do email us questions, and also, for our investors, I'm willing to hop on a phone call. My schedule is fairly busy, but I'm sure we can carve out a time and chat for 10-15 minutes. If you've got some questions or concerns, that's open to you. I'm not sure how long I'll be able to do that as my my schedule is quite busy, and we've got some really exciting projects kicking off here. But I try to make myself as available as possible. So with that, thank you for joining us, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. And have a great day.